Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing breaches of the week. This week in data breaches, absolutely nuts, same as it ever was, but thank you very much to John Lakever, Matma Al Rashad, George Berg, and Terry Swanson for sending me some of these. It always helps me out. No time to lose. Let's dive right in with an update on FBCS, or Financial Business and Consumer Solutions. This is a debt collection agency that declared earlier this year, and we now have two more companies that are caught up in this. First one is Comcast, yes, the one of the largest, if not the largest, internet and television provider in the United States for roughly 237,000 customers. At least that's how many we know of thus far. And Truist, one of the top 20 financial institutions here in the United States as well. So we'll keep rolling, but FBCS, if basically you are in collections with one major company or another, you might be caught up in this at some point. Moving on, let's head on over to India and talk about Star Health. Now, I talked about them a while ago, and this is an update on their ongoing breach. This is one of the largest health providers of insurance, I believe, in the entire country. Now, a new report is suggesting that this alleged data breach at Star Health Insurance was apparently done by a senior executive of the company that allegedly stole the personal data of over 31 million customers and then essentially sold it to hackers. So we're going to see if that's true or not. India is still investigating, rather the government of India is still investigating. So heads up to you if you're watching me from there and you've got basically, or listening to me, I should say also, you've got Star Health as your provider. Moving on. Back to the United States, let's talk about Citizens Bank. They are the 15th largest U.S. lender, so obviously pretty big. And in a filing with basically Vermont, Citizen Bank says it suffered a data breach in the first half of this year. Quote, on July 10, 2024, Citizens was alerted to an incident where images containing your personal information may have been shared with an unauthorized party sometime between January 10, 2024 through June 13th, 2024. This is an isolated incident affecting approximately 100 customers. So if you use Citizens Bank, odds are you're okay, but hopefully you didn't win that lottery. Moving on, let's talk about the accounting firm Doman, Ackerland, and Eddy. On October 7th of this year, they filed with Maine after discovering an unauthorized person had gained access into their infrastructure and removed certain files. In this notice, they explain the incident resulted in an unauthorized party being able to access individual sensitive information. I do not have what that list is, and they are now sending out notifications to those impacted. So heads up, accounting firm patrons of Doman, Ackerland, and Eddy. Moving on, Omni Family Health on October 7, they filed with California after discovering their data was posted on the dark web. Now, in this notice, Omni explained that the incident resulted in an unauthorized party being able to access consumer-sensitive information. We're talking names, address, social security, dates of birth, health insurance plan information, and medical information as well. Omni is also sending out letters. Moving on, Empowerment Management Corp. On October 9, they filed with Texas after discovering that they basically had been subject to unauthorized access as well. Empower explained that the incident resulted in individual sensitive information getting dumped. Of course, we're talking names, address, social security numbers, financial account information, medical information, and health insurance information as well. Empower Management sending out letters. Moving on, and oh, the irony on this one, Credit Risk Monitor, all one word, on October 8th, Credit Risk Monitor filed with the SEC and also Massachusetts after discovering that information from their infrastructure was compromised by an unauthorized actor. In this notice, Credit Risk Monitor explained that the incident basically allowed sensitive information to be accessed and taken, which includes names and social security, and they are sending out letters as well. So if you use Credit Risk Monitor to monitor your credit for risk, yikes. They got you breached too. So we're going to see what happens, and here we go. Moving on. True World Group on October 3rd, they filed with Montana after discovering that an unauthorized party had copied certain files out from their network, and the unauthorized party was able to gain sensitive information belonging to current and former employees. I do not have a list on this one, and they are sending out essentially breach notification letters as well to those impacted. So if you have or have ever worked for True World Group, whatever they do, heads up to you. Moving on. Seven Counties Services on October 4, they filed with Health and Human Services Office of Civil Rights after discovering that staff email accounts were compromised during a phishing attack. And Seven County Services explained the sensitive data impacted was customers or consumers' names, dates of birth, social security, address, phone numbers, email addresses, diagnosis, and dates of service. Seven County Services are sending out letters as well. Moving on, Alliance Laundry Systems on October 8th, they filed with Massachusetts after discovering confidential information that had been provided to the company was subject to unauthorized access, and they are talking about consumers' names, social security numbers, financial account information, and driver's license numbers as well. Alliance Laundry Systems also sending out notices. Moving on, let's talk about Shoe Show, where I guess you can show your shoes, not sure. Anyway, they filed with Maine after an unauthorized party gained access to one of their employees' email accounts. Basically, sensitive information was hit, although I do not have a list on that, and Shoe Show is sending out letters as well. So if you show your shoes with Shoe Show, or they show you shoes, or however they do their thing, heads up. Moving on, Hayfitz and Associates on October 4, they basically also filed with Health and Human Services Office of Civil Rights after saying that they were a victim of an email phishing attack. An unauthorized party gained access to sensitive consumer information, names, dates of birth, social security numbers, and benefit elections information. They are sending out notices as well. So heads up, Hayfitz and Associates customers. Moving on, Long Island Plastic Surgical, they basically filed with Texas of all places after discovering, because New York Plastic Surgical Group is also their DBA, so here we go. But filing in Texas, I guess a lot of Texans go to New York for this. Anywho, Attorney General of Texas got notified, and basically they said an unauthorized party was able to gain access to the company's network. And in this notice, New York Plastic Surgical Group explained that the incident had involved sensitive information on their patients, which includes names, social security numbers, dates of birth, driver's license, state ID numbers, passport numbers, financial account information, biometric information, because I'm sure they're taking before and after photos of their plastic surgery patients, which could be incredibly sensitive depending on what you're getting enhanced or not, if you know what I mean, as well as health insurance policy information as well, were all impacted. And New York Plastic Surgical Group, aka Long Island Plastic Surgical, are sending out notifications as well. Moving on, H&R Block, just in time for the extensions on October 15th, filing deadlines for personal tax returns, and turning it around again on April 15th. On October 3rd, H&R basically filed with Texas after discovering an unauthorized party was able to access system information stored in HR Block's infrastructure. We're talking names, social security numbers, financial account information, driver's license numbers, and dates of birth. H&R Block is sending out notifications as well. And for the record, just because H&R Block is obviously a nationwide tax service here in the United States and possibly other places, but here in the U.S., just because they have basically notified the Attorney General of Texas means they've done their due diligence, but that doesn't necessarily mean only Texans are involved in this. You could be a New Yorker, you could be a Californian, an Illinoisan, whoever you are, wherever you're living, and you're using H&R Block, this may be part of it. And that goes for everything that I've talked about here. Just because they're in Texas or Maine or wherever they're reporting doesn't mean that others, basically in other states or even outside the country could be caught up in this if you're using services. Because again, we go across state borders, no papers. Moving on. Let's talk about Fidelity, one of the world's largest asset managers. They just confirmed that over 77,000 customers had their personal information compromised during an August data breach, which includes social security numbers and driver's licenses. I do not know if this is basically because they're global, just in the United States, but that's the information I'm getting. So if you are using Fidelity outside of the United States, you may be safe, but I do not know. They're saying a total of 77,099 customers were impacted by this breach, and here we go. So odds are you're going to be getting something from Fidelity sooner than later. That obviously is a total pain in the butt. But with that, let's move on to our mini segment simply entitled, If You Just Spent Money on Cybersecurity, You Wouldn't Be Getting Sued and You Wouldn't Have Your Reputation Ruined. And we only have one for you this week, and that would be Marriott. Yes, the massive hotel chain. Marriott International and its subsidiary Starwood Hotels will pay $52 million and create a comprehensive information security program as part of settlements for data breaches that impacted over 344 million customers. And as somebody who frequently travels, I've stayed in a ton of Marriotts, as I'm sure well, 344 million of us have, right? So obviously a huge thing. Now, the settlement requires Marriott and Starwood to implement a comprehensive security program, which they should have done after their last 40 breaches in the last 3 years or whatever, because I do breaches of the week. I see it all the time, and Marriott's a perennial. So here we go. They also basically have to allow their U.S. customers to request personal data deletions as well. In other words, I can go to Marriott and say, scrub my stuff. Now, additionally, Marriott will, or rather has agreed to pay $52 million to 49 states to resolve claims related to basically these data breaches as well. Marriott International, for the record, manages and franchises a massive portfolio of hotels and lodging around the entire globe. They have more than 7,000 properties in 130 countries, so I think everybody's going to get paid on this. But it really goes to show that because Marriott shows up quite frequently, I actually joke about them when I'm on stage about data breaches. They really need to get it together, and hopefully, paying all of this money, tens of millions of dollars, is going to do it. But we'll see, because quite frankly, if they had just spent money on cybersecurity, they wouldn't be paying all of this money. They wouldn't have their reputation ruined. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be talking about them. And that ends our mini segment. Moving on, we actually are going to finalies, just changing it up a bit here, because I've got 2 finalies for you, quasi-amusing on one, downright horrible on the other. So first things first, let's talk about robot vacuums made by Ecovacs. Now, they've basically been reported roving around people's homes, yelling profanities at them through the onboard speakers after the company's software was found to be vulnerable to intrusion. Now, ABC News in Australia, that's the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, reported that there were recently multiple incidents across the United States. So I don't know why ABC Australia is the first to report on this, but in multiple instances across the U.S., when owners of Ecovacs vacuums noticed that their devices were acting unusually. Quote, it sounded like a broken up radio signal or something. You could hear snippets of maybe a voice. That is Daniel Swenson, owner of an Ecovac robotic vacuum. Now, he opened the Vacuums app to find that a stranger was accessing its live camera feed and remote control feature, but assumed it might be an error. After resetting the password and rebooting the robot, the vacuum quickly started moving again. This time, there was no ambiguity about what was coming out of the speakers, and this is why this sucks. A voice yelling racist obscenities loud and clear right in front of Mr. Swenson's son. Quote, F N-words is basically what they were screaming at this child over and over and over. And this is why Nazis shouldn't have the internet to begin with. I mean, come on, dude, really? The second thing is, this really underscores the issue that we have with internet connected things that are managed by the cloud, especially, if these systems aren't properly secured. We had a whole slew of Google Nest cameras, for example, where people did not have their Gmail accounts secure, and people were logging in and just getting access to these things and then talking to little kids saying, hey, I'm Santa, I'm God, I'm the devil, I'm all these different kinds of things. Now you've got racist vacuums yelling, the vacuum's not yelling, but the racist is yelling through the vacuum at people, kids, et cetera, because Ecovacs apparently just hasn't really secured this down. The other side of it, too, is if Ecovacs goes under or they're not bought, these people might be left with essentially bricked or dead IoT devices like robot vacuums because they can't get to the cloud, they can't get programming, and if they can't get programming, they just stop working, and we've seen cases of that as well. So not a fan of this, obviously not cool. So basically, if you're a racist, one, please get off the internet. You're bringing us all down. But 2, don't hack into it and yell at little kids. What kind of a jerk are you? Moving on. And this is the one that I'm most concerned about as well, because not like everybody has an Ecovac, right? So with this, we need to talk about the Internet Archive. And the Internet Archive, I think, before I dive into what's going on here, I think is one of the most important things that we have on the internet, because it is actually a record of basically what has happened, what has transpired, and it's used constantly for research, to see how technology has evolved. And in fact, actually a couple of weeks ago, because my company's getting a new website built, I actually went back to look at my very first website on for my first company, which I founded in 1998, and the Wayback Machine had an archive as late, or rather as early as 2000 on that original site. And it was amusing to see just how much it changed, not just in website presence, but what I was offering back then versus now. It was interesting. The Internet Archive is an important thing that we have in our lives, and quite frankly, this is something that we really need to make sure that we are taking care of and protecting. And so with that, let's talk about their Wayback Machine that allows us to go look at this, because they suffered a data breach after a threat actor compromised the website and stole a user authentication database containing 31 million unique records. Now, news of the breach began circulating this past Wednesday after visitors to the archive.org site began seeing a JavaScript alert basically created by the attackers stating that the Internet Archive was breached. And I quote, "Have you ever felt like the Internet Archive runs on sticks and is constantly on the verge of suffering a catastrophic security breach? It just happened. See 31 million of you on HIBP." Now, that's essentially what the message was put out. Now, HIBP basically refers to Have I Been Pwned? That's the notification service created by Troy Hunt, the Australian, et cetera, et cetera. And so threat actors will commonly dump stuff there. You can go punch in your Have I Been Pwned is legit. You can go punch in your email address and see what breaches you are part of. And a lot of us are part of everything. Well, pretty much everybody at this point, right? So Troy Hunt, talking to Bleeping Computer, where I'm cribbing these notes from, said that the threat actors shared and basically the Internet Archive's authentication database 9 days ago, so it should be about 12 days ago from now or so, that basically is a 6.4 gigabyte SQL file, essentially called ia_users.sql. Now, this database contains authentication information for registered members, including email addresses, screen names, password, change stamps, bcrypt hash passwords, and other internal data as well. The most recent timestamp that they could find on these records was September 28th of this year, which is most likely the day that essentially that was stolen. Now, Troy Hunt is also saying there are 31 million unique email addresses in this database, with many subscribed to the Have I Been Pwned data breach notification service. The data will soon be added to Have I Been Pwned, allowing you and me and everybody else to enter your email and confirm if we're part of this as well. And odds are I probably am. So the data was basically confirmed to be real after Hunt contacted the users listed in the database, including another cybersecurity researcher, Scott Helm, basically who told Bleeping Computer, yeah, go ahead and share it. And like I said, I'm probably part of this too. So we'll see. I should probably check in with Troy, as we all should. So anyway, those were your breaches of the week. Another just crazy week. Robotic vacuums, Internet Archive, large financial institutions, largest provider of health in India, and on and on and on. It just keeps getting nuts. And so hopefully you're staying safe out there, just like I am, or at least trying to. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.